Ron Young, Menec, 9th of August 2016, Southwest France. Today's topic is one which is probably the one that I get asked the most when I travel around the world. When I'm starting to talk about knowledge management, how better to manage our knowledge as individuals, as teams, collectively, as communities, as networks of people, and as entire organizations, indeed, even countries. How countries manage their knowledge today in the global knowledge economy is critical to success. But the question I get asked the most is, what is the difference between information and knowledge? That's the first stumbling block, because actually many people use the words information and knowledge to mean the same thing. The way I like to describe the difference is as follows. Knowledge is something which starts in our heads and is created in our heads personally. And knowledge could be considered to be the result of all of our learnings, experiences, ideas, insights that we have during our lives, which enable us to form certain beliefs and values, certain beliefs about who we are, who we think we are, and why we act the way we do. We act on our values and beliefs. So knowledge starts in the heads of people, and we can develop a great deal of knowledge through our lifetimes. In fact, we like to call this, the term we use is our tacit knowledge, the knowledge that's within us. Other people can't see it when we meet one another. They can't see or feel or understand the vast amounts of tacit knowledge that exist in each individual. But it's there, and we act on it. However, when we're communicating with one another, when we're trying to communicate based on our knowledge, consider two people talking to one another, let's say, what we're communicating is a tiny, tiny part of our knowledge. We are making our knowledge, a small part of our knowledge, explicit. We turn this knowledge that's within our heads, this tacit knowledge, into something which is explicit. And that's information. When we make our knowledge explicit in words to another individual, we're informing them. They are listening. But to them, it's not necessarily, in most cases, knowledge they're receiving. It's information they are receiving. So our knowledge, a part of it, becomes information which we communicate to one another. Our explicit knowledge for another person can be information. That's probably where the confusion starts. I'm informing you. That person then goes through a learning process. They're listening to that information, and they're first of all perhaps deciding if they agree with this and want to listen to it or reject it. If they agree with it, then they may analyze it. If they're receptive to that information, then internally there are some incredible processes going on. Internally they're analyzing the information and reflecting perhaps and consolidating with their own deep knowledge, their own deep tacit knowledge. And this is the learning process. The learning process, which contains several smaller sub-processes, the learning process is actually turning information into knowledge. And therefore the receiver adds to his or her personal knowledge. And knowledge is a very personal thing. Every individual on planet Earth has personal knowledge, and it's unique to them. There may well be some strong commonalities which lead to common beliefs, common understandings, common values. But essentially, it's highly unlikely, if not impossible, for two human beings to have the same knowledge. We all have unique knowledge, which we communicate to others as information until they accept it and turn it into, or add it into, their own personal knowledge base. But today, the 21st century, we don't just communicate with words, information. Much of our communication is in the printed word, in books and newspapers. Much of it is in videos, and of course much of it is in computers, in emails and the like. And in social media today, well, many people on this planet, almost 1 billion on this planet, use Facebook daily to communicate to one another, pictures and videos and text messages. And this is also information until it's absorbed by the reader, by the viewer, and turned into their explicit knowledge. Again, applying the learning process, turning information into knowledge. So, to summarize, the difference between information and knowledge is that knowledge is within us. It's tacit, it's invisible, until we start to make some of that, a tiny bit of that, visible. Maybe through talking, presenting PowerPoint slide presentations, lecturing, writing emails, whatever, books. We've made a part of our knowledge explicit. And that explicit knowledge is the basis for others to learn. So we could also put that explicit knowledge into databases. But they contain information, not knowledge. They may contain the knowledge of the person that puts it in the first place. It's their explicit knowledge, but it only becomes actively knowledge for somebody else when they learn and absorb it, unless they already know, of course. So we have this invisible tacit knowledge and this explicit knowledge, which is information to others, which can be contained in a variety of information systems or simply talking to one another. But the key thing is we have to go through the learning process to turn that information, however it is communicated or stored, into our own personal knowledge.